I'm a small YouTube film critic, and I'm not just talking about the fact that I'm 5'7", okay? Keep that to yourself. What is up, goblins? It is Mr. Giddles here, and I have been a terrible movie critic for about 6 months at this point. And if you are in the same boat as me, trying to grow as a film critic, I think that it's really important that we do this together. Because I don't know about you, but I'm really tired of doing this by myself. Learning how to dissect films, convey it to an audience, it just gets really exhausting trying to do this on your own. And I'm sure you feel the same way. And so I'm making this video for a couple of reasons. One is to kind of share the pointers that I have that's helping me grow as a film critic. And then the other thing is that I just recently launched an Instagram page. And on that page, the reason I did it mostly is so that I can find small YouTube critics that want to grow together and learn how to experience film in a different way, understand how to communicate that with others by getting together as a group and just going after it, learning together. And it's one of those things that I think would be very helpful for me to meet a lot of you guys, because I'm really plugged into this community and I want to get to know all of you guys much better. And I think it would be helpful for you as well to be in a group of people to realize, hey, we're not doing this alone, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. I think that is something that is really important while trying to grow as a small YouTuber. And so before I get into all of these things that I have learned, I want you to know that the link to that is down below in the description. There's really only me and my cousin in there at this point. So if you were like me and you really want to get plugged into a small YouTube critic community, the link is down below in the description, and I really hope to see you there. So here's kind of the part where I'm just going to go through some of the things that I've learned trying to do this on my own. And I do think that although I'm not perfect at this, I do think that I am starting to learn how to convey my emotions, how to portray my thoughts to you guys. And that is all because of the things we're about to go over right now. So first thing on my list to becoming a better movie critic is to watch a lot of movies. I watch a ridiculous amount of films. I watch good films, I watch bad films, I watch foreign films, I watch all sorts of things that I'm not even necessarily interested in, but I think to get a good understanding of what you think, you first need to experience things outside of your comfort zone. And this really helps if you are an absolute movie nerd like me, since I've grown up watching movies, anything I can get my hands on. That's not really something that I started like 3 weeks ago. So like I already have like a back catalog of a blockbuster in the back of my mind, so I can be like, okay, this film clearly takes inspiration from this, or this film didn't work and it should have taken more inspiration from this film. It's much easier if you have watched a ton of films. But if you want to get into becoming a movie critic, I think it's important to just start now. Like, just start. It's not a bad thing that you haven't watched a whole bunch of movies. I think it's a great thing that you aspire to do this, but this is really the only thing that I had in my arsenal when I started, is that I watched a lot of movies. Well, I did this a lot, and then I did this next one a lot, which is watch a lot of people dissect movies, or even read. Because the whole idea of being a critic is accurately conveying your thoughts and emotions to somebody else on a given piece of art. And if you don't understand how other people do that, then it's very difficult for you to be able to do that. I think everybody has one of those moments where you're watching a review of something or you're reading and you're like, okay, yes, you gave me the exact words I needed to be able to understand how I'm feeling. And as a critic, I think that's your job. But it's very difficult to do that without first having a vocabulary or even a basic understanding of how films work. And I'll have a bunch of links of my favorite creators down below in the description. But just to shout out a couple, I think that Sean Chandler, Cody Leach, 3C Films, Moist Critical. You can even get into some older YouTubers like Jeremy Johns, Chris Stuckman, John Campia. And then I think it's also important to go back and watch old Siskel and Ebert, or read some Carl Sandburg. And I think stuff like this is important because these are films that I've never even heard of, I guess besides the original Phantom of the Opera film. But even though I've never watched most of these films, the way that he's able to convey what he believes and how he thinks on these films, it gives me some ideas of how maybe I would react to the subject matter of his films. Another great resource I have is this New York Times at the Movies book. And this is really neat because you'll be able to see the New York Times review of these classic films. I mean, there's Star Wars in here. There's stuff like A Birth of a Nation, and we'll get into stuff like that later. I mean, pretty much anything up until like the early 80s, they have the original excerpt of the review in here. And so you can kind of see what the culture was thinking at that time. And again, just getting into how people convey their feelings on film, I think is very important. And it helps you understand the vocabulary of the environment in which you're trying to break out in. Understanding like the basics of what cinematography is, or what the 3-act structure of a film is supposed to look like. Understanding all of these different things, character arcs, subplots, major and minor themes, what overtext and subtext is, right? All of these things are important to be able to accurately tell others how you feel about this film and to not look like an idiot. It's also important to understand the history of film. I'm reading this, and this book is really good at explaining how people felt about films in the Great Depression. And I think, like I talked about Birth of a Nation earlier, maybe some of you know what that is, maybe some of you don't know what that is. It's a very interesting film because it's a blatant propaganda, racist propaganda piece that is the film that absolutely pushed in the next wave of KKK members because of how racist it was, and it portrayed the KKK as these heroes in white hoods that come in and save you from the evil black man. But what's interesting about it is that it is one of the most influential films of all time with the way that D.W. Griffith moved the camera around. I mean, there's a Civil War reenactment in that film that looks so good, and it still to this day looks believable, like they could have just had a camera there during the Civil War recording everything. It's such an interesting piece of history because it is blatantly racist and evil, but it also is one of the main reasons why we have film the way that we do today. And while discussing this film, Roger Ebert wrote this. He said, "Today, what they saw for the first time we cannot see at all. The Birth of a Nation is not a bad film because it argues for evil. It is a great film that argues for evil. To understand how it does so is to learn a great deal about film and even something about evil." And that's the goal here, to be able to pull out what the film is, what it stands for, and the quality of such film, lay it out in front of everybody and be like, okay, this is what is good about it, this is why I think it's important, and this is what is holding it back. And if we want to be able to understand how to do that, we must start reading and watching film reviewers of all generations, of all different walks of life. And I think if we do that, we will be way ahead of everybody else in this space. I think the third thing that we need to do to be able to become a better film critic is understand different types of art and what makes them special. I talked about reading. I've been reading Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I'm reading through The Lord of the Rings. I'm in no way an avid reader, but I do try to read so that I understand how to critique books. And if I can understand why something in this might not work, I can also further understand why that might not work in a film. I also listen to a lot of music of different genres, of different times, to be able to understand the cultural significance of that and try to put how I feel in words. There was a fine arts convention last week in my town, and I went to that so that I can look at different paintings and be able to critique those as well. This is what I like about it, this is what I don't. And a key to that also is finding people on YouTube and reading books of people dissecting what makes music great, what makes paintings great, why this book works and this book doesn't. I mean, you just have to kind of get a sense of what makes art good art and what makes bad art bad art. And that is not exclusive to film, it's not exclusive to books, it's not exclusive to paintings. It is all encompassing. And the more that you experiment in things like this, the more that you'll be able to put to words how you feel about film, since that is really what we're trying to critique here. And I think that this last one is one of the most important things that I've done recently so that I can become a better film critic. And that is be more in touch with myself. The more that I understand myself, the more that I can convey myself to others. That sounds so simple, but it is something that we really do miss. And so I've been trying to journal more. I'm not great at it, but I've been trying to journal more. I've done a lot more meditation. I've spent a lot more time with my earbuds out trying to understand why I feel certain things when I talk to people, when people talk to me. I do like a lot of bird watching as well, and so I try to understand why I feel this certain way about this species or blah, yada, yada, yada. It might sound dumb to you, but this is, I think, the biggest thing to overcome for a lot of people, and it was for me as well. How do I feel about this certain thing? And if I can put to words how I feel in my head, then I can also convey that to you, because everybody can talk about the birth of a nation, or everybody can talk about what makes the new Avengers film really good or really bad, but not a lot of people can convey emotions and why this makes me feel a certain way. And people respond to emotions much more than they do facts. So if you can understand why you feel something, what makes you feel that way, and learn how to put that to words, you are miles ahead of everybody else in our circle. Why do I feel this way? And if you can ask yourself why, over and over and over again. Why do I think this didn't work about a film? Why do I think this book is brilliant? Why do I think this painting is extremely unsettling? Or whatever it is, why do I feel this way? And if you can answer that, and you can learn to convey that through all of the different vocabularies that you're learning while listening to all of these other critics, that is how we become much better critics ourselves. This is by far the longest video I have ever made on my channel, but I think it is something that is just really nice to get off of my chest. And again, if you are an aspiring critic of whether it's movies, whether it's paintings, whatever it is, I really, really, really would enjoy you joining the Instagram group chat. You just click that link down below, because I really can't do this alone much longer. I want to bounce ideas off of you, and I think that we could really be beneficial together. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the subscribe button, because I try to make a video every other day or so about film or the conversation around film. And so thank you so much for being here. I love you. Goodbye. And good luck at becoming a critic.